There is a single decision in a colony's first year that determines whether it explodes into a strong, honey-producing hive or stalls out and limps into winter half-empty. And almost every beginner course teaches you to make that decision based on the wrong signal entirely. Adding your second box at the wrong moment quietly costs more first-year beekeepers their colony than mites, weather, or bad queens combined. Here's the full story. Walk into any beginner beekeeping class, and you will hear the same instruction repeated like gospel. Add your second box when the bees have drawn out 7 of the 10 frames in the first box. 7 of 10. It sounds precise. It sounds like science. And it is one of the most misleading rules ever handed to a new beekeeper because it measures the wrong thing at the wrong time, and it ignores everything that actually determines whether a colony is ready to expand. The 7-frame rule treats a beehive like a container being filled with water. When the container is 70% full, add another container. But a colony is not a container, and bees do not fill space evenly or predictably. A colony can have 7 frames drawn and be nowhere near ready for more room, and a colony can have 5 frames drawn and be desperate for it. The frame count tells you almost nothing on its own, and beekeepers who follow it blindly end up making one of 2 costly mistakes. The first mistake is adding the box too early. The second is adding it too late. Both come from watching frame count instead of watching the colony, and both do real damage. Let me explain what happens when you add the second box too early, because this is the more common error and the more quietly destructive one. A young colony generates heat to keep its brood nest at a precise temperature, right around 95 degrees. That temperature is not optional. Brood that gets too cool develops poorly or dies. The colony's ability to hold that temperature depends on having enough bees to cover and warm the space they occupy. A small colony in a single box can just manage it. Give that same small colony a second empty box too soon, and you have suddenly doubled the volume of air they have to heat with the same number of bees. The colony now faces a choice it should never have been forced to make. It can either spread thin, trying to warm the larger cavity, which stresses the whole colony and slows brood rearing. Or it can abandon the upper box entirely and cluster below, which means the empty box up top does nothing but invite trouble. That empty, unguarded space becomes prime real estate for wax moths and small hive beetles, which move into the parts of the hive the bees cannot patrol. You wanted to give your bees room to grow. Instead, you gave them a cold attic and a pest nursery. This is the part beginner courses gloss over. They tell you adding space encourages growth. Sometimes it does, but adding space before the colony has the population to use it does the opposite. It chills the brood nest, slows the buildup, and hands part of your hive to pests. The colony that should have been racing towards strength instead spends weeks just trying to recover from being given too much room too soon. Before I go on, a quick word. Everything I have learned about reading colonies the way the old-timers did, the timing, the buildup, the signs that catalogs never bother teaching, I wrote down plain in the Hive Vault over at daleshiv.com. Volume 1 covers colony management like this from the ground up. The video is free and always will be. The Vault is just the long version for folks who want all of it in one place. I won't mention it again. Now the opposite mistake, adding the box too late, which is less common but costs you honey directly. A strong, healthy colony in spring builds fast. The queen is laying 1,000 or more eggs a day. The population is climbing, and the bees are bringing in nectar and packing it into every open cell they can find. If that colony fills its single box and you have not given it more room, you have created a crisis the bees solve in the worst possible way for you. A colony that runs out of space gets the swarm impulse. They raise queen cells, and on a warm afternoon, half your bees and your laying queen pour out of the hive and disappear over the fence. A swarm is not a minor setback. It is the loss of half your workforce and your established queen right at the start of the honey flow, the exact moment you needed maximum population to actually make honey. The colony that swarms because you added the box too late will limp through the rest of the season, rebuilding instead of producing. You did not just miss out on extra honey, you lost the crop. So the 7-frame rule fails you in both directions. Follow it too literally on a slow colony, and you chill the brood and invite pests. Follow it too slowly on a fast colony, and you lose a swarm. The number was never the point. The colony's actual condition is the point. Here is what the old beekeepers watched instead, and what actually tells you a colony is ready for its second box. The first and most important signal is bee population relative to space, not frame count. Open the hive and look at how thickly the bees cover the frames. A colony ready to expand will have frames that are densely, almost completely blanketed with bees, and crucially, bees will be actively working the outermost frames and starting to cluster on the inner cover or walls. When the bees have run out of room to hang out, not just run out of drawn comb, they are telling you they need space. A colony where the outer frames are still sparsely covered is not ready no matter how many center frames are drawn. The second signal is the brood pattern and the laying room the queen has left. Look at the frames in the heart of the nest. If the queen has filled most of the available cells with brood and is running out of empty cells to lay in, the colony needs room to keep the buildup going. If there are still plenty of open cells in the brood nest, the colony has room to grow inside the box it already has, and adding more is premature. The third signal is the nectar coming in. If a strong flow is on, and the bees are backfilling the brood nest with nectar because they have nowhere else to put it, that backfilling crowds the queen and triggers swarming. That is the moment to give them a super. Even if the frame count says wait, the flow changes the math entirely. Population density, laying room, and incoming nectar. Those three things, read together, tell you exactly when to add the box. The frame count is a rough proxy that ignores all three. Here are the mistakes that sink people even once they stop counting frames. Mistake 1 is adding the box on a calendar instead of on the colony. Your neighbor added theirs last week, so you add yours. But every colony builds at its own pace depending on its queen, its genetics, and its forage. Read your colony, not the calendar, and not your neighbor's hive. Mistake 2 is adding the box and walking away. Adding space is not the end of the decision. You need to check back in a week or two to see whether the bees actually moved up and started working the new box. If they ignored it, you added it too early, and you may need to reassess. Mistake 3 is putting undrawn foundation above a colony during a dearth with no flow on. Bees draw comb on a flow when nectar is coming in. Ask them to draw a whole box of fresh foundation when nothing is coming in, and they often will not touch it. Time the new box to the flow. Mistake 4 is forgetting that a second deep and a honey super are different decisions. Giving the colony room to grow its nest is one thing. Giving it room to store surplus honey for you is another. Know which one you are doing and why. Picture your first colony handled the way the old beekeepers did it. You are not counting frames and reaching for a box the second you hit 7. You are reading the bees. You watch the population thicken until they are blanketing every frame and gathering on the walls. You see the queen running out of room to lay and the nectar starting to crowd her. And right then, at the moment the colony is genuinely ready and a flow is on to draw the comb, you give them the room they have earned. The colony moves up, expands, and rockets toward the strength that makes real honey. No chilled brood, no pest-filled empty boxes, no lost swarm over the fence. Just a colony given exactly what it needed, exactly when it needed it. Drop a comment and tell me how you decide when to add your second box, and whether you have ever lost a colony or a swarm getting the timing wrong. I read every single one at Dale's Hive. And if this changed how you will handle your hive this season, the full colony management system is waiting in the vault at daleshive.com. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week we are breaking down exactly how to read a brood pattern frame by frame, so you can spot a failing queen weeks before the colony shows it. The number was never the secret. Reading the colony is. Now you know what to actually watch.